defining love, let's look at the various forms of expression that love is finding, first of all. For most people in the world, love is just a mutual benefit scheme. Okay. People have different kinds of needs, physical, psychological, emotional, social, financial, so various types of needs. To fulfill these needs, I love you is always a good mantra. Without that mantra, many doors will not open for you. So that's one level of thing. But fundamentally, what is this that we're calling as love? Somewhere, the way the human being is right now, no matter where he is in his life, no matter what he's achieved, somewhere there is a sense of insufficiency. It's not enough the way he is. The way he is right now is not enough. He wants to include something else as a part of himself, to make himself more complete. So love is a huge longing to include the other as a part of yourself. If this longing to include the other as a part of oneself, when it finds an emotional expression, we are calling this love. If this longing to include the other as a part of yourself finds a basic physical expression, we call this sex. If this finds a mental expression, it gets labeled as greed, ambition, whatever. All these are just efforts to include something else as a part of yourself, isn't it? That which is not you right now, you want it to become you. This is the longing of love. So, it is just an emotional expression of the same longing which a human being is constantly longing for, to include something else as a part of himself. This starts from gathering simple things around him to seeking spirituality or God, the same longing to include something else as a part of himself. The fundamental longing to have a larger slice of life than what you have right now. That is a longing, isn't it? Somehow the way it is not enough. You want to experience life little more than the way it is right now. So this longing to include the other as a part of yourself is love. Emotionally, how much ever you make this effort, you get close to that, you're almost there many moments, but next moment it falls down. It doesn't matter how intensely you approach it, you will see you're almost there and it falls apart. You're almost there, it falls apart. So, it gives you a taste of oneness, but never establishes you there. So, love is just a vehicle for oneness. What you're longing for is that oneness. Emotion or love is just one more vehicle to get there. But it is a vehicle which takes you close to the other bank and turns you around, close to the other bank and turns you around, never lands you there. So, when you get sufficiently mauled by the process of love, you will be ready for grace. What is called as grace? Anything that I say will be misunderstood because what is not logical and physical cannot be put into language. If we want to use an analogy, gravity is one aspect of life. We are sticking to the planet right now because of gravity, otherwise we would be floating all over the place. We have a body today only because of gravity, otherwise we couldn't gather this body itself. So gravity is one aspect of life which, in a way, is related to the fundamental instinct of self-preservation in a human being. There are two basic forces within you which are constantly functioning, which seem to be in conflict with most people. It is not in conflict, but most people see it as in conflict. One is the instinct of self-preservation, which compels you to build walls around yourself to protect yourself. Another part of you is longing to constantly expand. One is trying to build walls, another is trying to expand. The walls of self-preservation that you build for today are the walls of self-imprisonment of tomorrow, isn't it? Isn't it so? Many limitations you establish in your life as a protection for yourself, tomorrow you feel they're imprisoning you and you want to break it and build a bigger prison for yourself. But day after tomorrow, the same big prison feels like a restriction and you want to break it and go to the next stage. So these two longings, one is to preserve yourself, another is to continuously expand. These two things are not opposing forces, these two things are related to two different aspects of who you are. Self-preservation needs to be limited to the physical body. It's only your body which needs to be preserved. Everything else can be mauled and demolished and rebuilt every day. Every day in the morning you can actually get up and build a whole new personality if you want. But right now, your instinct of self-preservation has extended itself to the very way you think, feel and understand life, isn't it? All the time you're trying to protect that. But self-preservation should be limited only to the physical body. Only the body needs preservation. Everything else can be reshaped and recreated as you wish, any moment of your life. So these two forces, because they're in conflict or they seem to be in conflict, there is a whole problem about all these things that we need systems and systems to speak spiritual processes. If one's instinct of self-preservation, one learns to keep it just within the body and not extend it to other aspects of life, every human being in the planet will be naturally spiritual, will naturally get to his ultimate nature. Only because he is restraining it, because his instinct of self-preservation always tells him, this is not safe, that is not safe. Only body has to be preserved. Everything else is open to everything else, isn't it? That's how it should be. But right now, the way you think, the way you feel, your values, your morals, your ideologies, your religion, all these things need to be preserved. Now, in this, there can be no expansion. Suddenly there seems to be a conflict.
You were talking about love and grace. Can you elaborate that a bit more?
So if we have to use an analogy, gravity and grace, let's put them as opposites. Gravity is trying to hold you down. Grace is something that is trying to lift you up. This is only an analogy, because grace cannot be explained that way. If you're released from the physical forces of existence, then grace bursts forth in your life. It is not that grace has to come, always in your calendars and pictures you saw grace is coming as a few rays of light and reaching a particular person. It is not so. As gravity is active, grace is constantly active. It is just that you have to make yourself available to it. With gravity you have no choice, anyway you're available to it. But with grace, you have to make yourself receptive and available to the forces of grace. So all the work, whatever kind of spiritual work you do, whether you do prayer or puja or asana, pranayam or whatever you do, ultimately you are just working towards making yourself available to the force of grace. Because without grace, you won't be lifted up. Which way you approach it depends upon what you're exposed to, what kind of a person you are. But whatever you're doing, you're just making yourself fit enough to be available to grace.
Enlightenment.
Enlightenment.
My basic question is, what does it feel like?
What does it feel like? Let's say there's no magic potion in this, just water, okay. Let's say you never had the experience of drinking water, and I have. And if I try to describe to you how it feels to drink water, would I ever get across to you? It doesn't matter how articulate I am, will I ever get across to you?
I'm trying.
Could you? Could you describe to a man who has not ever had the experience of drinking water what it really feels like to drink water? Something as simple as this. It won't get across, isn't it? So anything which is not in your experience, If people talk about it, it doesn't matter how articulate they are, how they come out, invariably it only leads to misunderstanding. So let's not talk about how it feels, let's talk about technically what it means. That you can understand, I know. If I say how it feels, I will end up saying things which… because whatever you speak, when we use language, I have to take care that I'm logical, isn't it? What you're referring to as enlightenment is not a logical process. It's well beyond that. So if I speak illogically here, would you sit with me? You won't. You won't, isn't it? Next 5 minutes if I speak illogically with you, you'll want to leave, isn't it so? Yes. You will sit here only if I speak logically. That means you have made it very clear to me, don't talk enlightenment. Okay? We'll talk about it, not… So what is it that we are referring to as enlightenment? As a human being, there are various levels of experiences that human beings are going through. Some people know just food and sleep, some people know creating something, some people know action, some people know art, some people know music. Some people know drugs, sex, this, that, so many things. But if you look at it carefully, always a human being is seeking to have a larger slice of life, isn't it? Isn't it so? Whether he's out to make money, or he wants to have pleasure, or he wants to go to heaven, it doesn't matter. Whether he wants to go to the temple or to the bar, he's still trying to have a larger slice of life. That's the only intention, isn't it so? To enhance the present level of life to something more. So the whole effort is to have a larger slice of life. So you have had pieces of life, some of them have been good, maybe some of them bitter, but you have had a certain slice of life. Suppose you had the whole pie for yourself, I would call that enlightenment. You're not seeking pieces anymore. You become very greedy. You want all of it. Everything that can be known, experientially, you want to know it right now. If you do manage it, that's called enlightenment. Is it very difficult? Not at all. The most difficult thing about enlightenment is it's too simple and it's the most obvious. Because it's so obvious, the whole world misses it. If it was somewhere up on the moon, by now everybody would have gotten it. But the problem is it's right here within you, that's the whole problem. And your whole focus is out. Why it is out is, right now, your whole perception of life is only through 5 senses. Yes? Everything that you know right now has entered you either by seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting and touching. This is the only way you know the world, isn't it? This moment if you shut down these 5 agencies of senses, you'll have no experience of life or of yourself. This is what is happening to you when you fall asleep. When you fall asleep, this one is very much alive, the body is alive, the mind is on, the world is on, but all of them have disappeared in your experience simply because the 5 senses have just shut down, that's all. So sense organs are the only means of experience for you right now. And sense organs in the very nature of things are outward bound. See, you can hear the fan obviously, but even if you drop a pin, you can hear it. So much activity in this body, can you hear it? No. If an ant crawls upon it, even the breeze from this fan you can feel it on your skin. So much blood flowing inside, can you feel it? No. So sense organs are essentially outward bound. Because of your dependence upon the sense perception, turning inward and knowing the inner dimension seems to be so out of reach. That's only because you do not have the right kind of instruments or right kind of vehicle to turn inward. It is like you want to eat a laddu, but you want to eat it through your ears. Very difficult, quite impossible, isn't it? You just have to understand it can only go here, it can't go here. So enlightenment is that difficult. Understand?
It never seems that.
Huh?
It never seems simple.
I'm saying it's that difficult. Even if you use both ears, still the laddu won't go. Even a piece of it won't go. But if you just use the right inlet, it goes. It's because people do not make the necessary effort to find which way. They want to go the way they know. It looks impossible. It is like you're riding a bullock cart, but you want to go to the moon. Somebody gives you a horsewhip and tells you, really whip the bulls, you'll get there. You won't get there. The reason why it's become so difficult is because too much nonsense has been spoken about it. If nobody had said anything about it, many people would have found their way. Too much nonsense has been said about it and a whole lot of confusion created. People have written too many things about it without knowing what it is. People have said too many things about it without having a clue what they're talking about, which has left people absolutely confused. At least, if people shut up, human intelligence is capable of knowing this. Because if you have an uncluttered intelligence, if a human being grows up with an uncluttered intelligence, when I say uncluttered, if your intelligence functions without being identified with anything in particular, then knowing the inner dimension becomes a natural process. Right now, that possibility has been taken away because right from day one, the parents are working hard to get the children identified with their family and their stupid values and whatever. The teachers are working super hard. You okay for a joke? I'm supposed to be serious? No? On a certain day, a bull strayed into the forest. He saw lush green grass and he went grazing inside. He went deep into the forest. A few days and weeks living there, he grew fat on food and no work. Then an old lion, who was well beyond his prime, was having difficulty hunting the wild animals, saw this fat bull. Easier to stalk and kill a bull than a deer, So he looked for his time and then pounced on him and killed him and ate him up. His stomach became real full. Then with great satisfaction he roared. A few hunters were passing that way. They heard the roar and tracked down the lion and shot him dead. The moral of the story is, when you're so full of bull, you should not open your mouth. But all the time these people are opening their mouth. If they all shut up for some time, it will be very natural for every human being to long to know. Right now they're just destroying that by giving ready-made solutions and all kinds of nonsense to believe in. It is very natural for your intelligence to probe at everything, isn't it? And how can you ignore yourself? You have ignored yourself because they've always made you look up there at some god that they themselves have not seen. Because of this, enlightenment has been transported or exported to heaven. Otherwise, it's simple, it's the most obvious. When you heard of Arjuna. So when Krishna went on talking truth, Arjuna said, where the hell is this truth that you're talking about? Where is it? Because if I ask you, is it here, you say no. If I ask you, is it there, you say no. At another time, if I ask you, is it here, you say yes. If I ask you, is it there, you say yes. What is this nonsense? Where is it? Tell me where is it, I'll go get it. He's a warrior, you know. So Krishna laughed and said, the ultimate truth about life is at the tip of your nose. Now, there are many schools of yoga who are intensely focusing on the tips of their noses. You try focusing on the tip of your nose, within 2 minutes you'll get a headache, you'll not get enlightened. So, all he's saying is it's the most obvious. The problem is it's here, but your senses are set there. So you just need a little bit of turning around, that's all.